What's up? This is Dan Fradenburgh for FIGGERRIDOUT.com, and today we've got more Dans from Dan on top. We're talking about LinkedIn, we're talking about real estate, but before we talk about that sort of thing, one thing that I like to do in this show is, because I think it's one of the most important things that a professional can have as a skill, which is the ability to introduce themselves. So Dan, could you please introduce yourself and show them how it's done?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, thank you so much. I'm Dan Lewkowicz, hashtag Dan on top. I am 37 years old, commercial real estate broker, investor, great guy who loves to have a good time, loves to connect. And I'm just so thrilled to be here with you and have an opportunity to speak, interact, and have a great time.
So I was looking into your background there. One thing I saw is that you had a background in psychology. So how do you feel about that?
Listen, I tell you, but I don't feel safe.
Oh, you don't feel safe. Well, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Right. But what exactly first of all drew you to commercial real estate in general? Was it the cash, the boats? What was it?
Yeah, I was the cash, the boats, and some other things. Basically, it was a variety of things. You know, when I was a lot younger, I started a business with a great friend of mine called Disability Made Easy. That was a barrier-free home modification company. Of course, I did all of the sales and marketing, but I got really interested in development as I watched some of our project managers go into homes and draw up sketches and make a product for a consumer that was completely barrier-free and handicap accessible. And that really impacted me. I think for the rest of my career, I then kind of moved into nonprofit fundraising and into sales for a title insurance agency. And after living in Israel for 4 years, I moved back kind of in the pits of the recession here. And when I bought my first home, I decided that instead of spending $200,000 for a starter house that was ready to go, I would go a couple hundred feet away and buy a house for $81,000 from U.S. Bank and renovate it myself, fix it up, and make a beautiful product that was both timeless in its original construction and layout, but also modern with the modern amenities. And my friends would joke with me. They said, Dan, what are you going to do once you're done renovating your house? And I said, jokingly, oh hell, I'll just buy another one. And I did that. I bought another one and another one and another one. And maybe 50 or 70 houses later, I realized that real estate was for me. And I was working at Amazon as a business development exec at the time. Was recruited by a net lease brokerage here in Michigan, and didn't know really what it was, but it seemed really lucrative and fun. I got into it. I started, looking at the commissions and the deal size, 5, 10, 15, $20 million deals with 3 or 4% commission. Heck, why am I flipping houses? Why am I, thinking about residential commissions when I can get almost the same amount of fee on a deal that's, I don't know what, 200 times the size?
Hmm.
So that's really what did it for me, Dan. And then I started meeting really cool people, great investors and fund managers and real estate investment trust acquisitions and disposition managers. And I just realized that I have an opportunity to help a lot of people, whether it's economically or career-wise. And now, thank God, I'm in a position where I'm hiring individuals to work with me, and it's been incredible. I couldn't be happier.
That's really interesting. And one thing that comes to mind from basically the arc, the curve, the angle of your career, it reminds me. I was talking to Nick Lamagna, who's also a podcaster and real estate investor. And one thing he mentioned in another conversation was that. He was always the underdog. Some people would say it's like, oh, you're never going to amount to anything, or something like that, other than his parents and stuff like that. He's the kind of guy, he does some jujitsu and MMA and all that kind of stuff. So, he doesn't mind getting his head beaten in every once in a while. But, I don't know if it's obvious or not. I'm not exactly that type. I'm not going out of the way to get my head beaten. But it sounds like I was mentioning this to him to see if anything interesting came to mind, and I was going like, because I was the opposite situation as a kid, where it's like, everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to be a fantastic success and all that kind of stuff. And I'm guessing you had like the same sort of thing from when you were very young. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was a little different. I would say that part of my motivation, it's funny, I was just in my office when we were talking earlier. I've got a 1996 Dodge Viper GT2 white with blue racing stripes on my desk. My dad got it for me when I was, gosh, maybe that car came out in 96, so I was like 13.
Hmm.
And I just took it from my parents' house the other day. He always would tell me when I was younger, he'd say, Danny, keep working hard, and one day you'll be zipping along in that Viper. And as odd as that was, just that little thought of like, wow, I could have that supercar if I just work hard. It really did influence me. And, growing up, I was, one of the brighter and more advanced students in my classes typically, a little bit more dweeby than most people. It wasn't until I got into high school that I started to get more athletic and into sports and, this good looking and all that. I'm just kidding. But at that point, I had always been told that, like I had what it takes and that I was intelligent and that I could go far. I was brought up in a pretty risk averse environment. So the fact that I'm a business owner and that I buy houses or that I flip houses or that I, am wheeling and dealing in deals that have, 7 zeros in them, is kind of weird, I would say, for where I came from. I love my parents. They're wonderful people. I kind of just, grew up in an environment where we washed plastic cups. And if we were cooking, noodles on the stove, we had to make sure to take the water and use it to water the plants. Weird things like that, where, I kind of went the other way and said, I was going to swear, but forget this. I'm going to make as much money as possible. I'm going to help as many people as possible. I'm not going to worry about money. I'm just going to do good things. And I think that diverse background and those kind of like that juxtaposition of being told I was smart and that I could zip along in that Viper, but that I needed to reuse water and plastic cups, it kind of motivated me to work even harder to get that Viper and to not have to worry about the plastic cups.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that approach. The whole idea of like, why would I worry about, saving money when I can just make my income go so high that I
Yes,
don't
thank
even
you.
care
Thank
about my
you.
bills anymore?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And the way I look at it too is like, what about passive income, right? How many plastic cups can I buy with one rental property? Or, I'm involved in some other media things right now. And, if something's providing ancillary income that takes relatively no work after it's set up, like, I could literally just fucking, oh, excuse me. I could literally just, litter my kitchen with plastic cups if I wanted to, because like you said, increase the income, decrease the worries, you got to be responsible. In fact, on that note, I was talking last night with someone. I watched an interesting interview with Shaquille O'Neal, and they mentioned that, hey, Shaq, you've made a lot of money, and much of it was when you were really young. Like, what's your secret to still being on top? And he said, do you have a piece of paper?
Mm.
Interviewer handed him a piece of paper. He took the piece of paper. He goes, do you mind if I rip this? Interviewer says, yeah, no problem. So Shaq takes the piece of paper. He goes, this is your income. He rips it in half. He goes, the smart people who make a lot of money and succeed, they take this half and they put it away. He goes, the really smart people who become really wealthy, they take this half and they rip it in half and they put that away. He goes, this piece, this 25%, this is where you buy your boats and your guns and your houses and your jewelry and your Rolexes and whatever you want. But it doesn't matter because 75% of your income is stacked away making money exponentially. And I thought, like, that's a message that people need to hear, because, penny pinching and trying to save every little thing and not spending money is not the answer. The answer is putting away a huge portion of your income and treating yourself with the other 25% to whatever the heck you want. There's some remarkable benefits of living in what I deem to be the greatest country on God's green earth, which is the United States of America. And one of those is home ownership. And the other one is the ability to start and run with relatively low interference your own business. And I think that, I'm first generation American. My parents were born in refugee camps shortly after World War II. And the opportunity that I have here as a first generation American, I've got 4 kids who, thank God, have a nice lifestyle. I've got a business. I own a home. And it's incredible that I was able to do that, not as any testament to me as a person, but as a testament to the system that we live in. And, I just have to say, like, the tax shaming is the most ridiculous thing in the world. The tax code was there for a reason. And anyone who is smart enough and knowledgeable enough and forward thinking enough to understand the tax code and then take advantage of it in a healthy, legal way, kudos to them. I got no problem with that. Look at things like the 1031 exchange, which, God forbid if a certain, individual gets elected who tries to get rid of the 1031 exchange,
And
it's going to
has the
cause.
political capital to pull it off. That's even more important to remember, right?
Yeah,
Because
and I hope to God that doesn't happen, because first of all, the 1031 is 37% of our business. Number one. Number two, look at that. I can buy a building, right? I can renovate it. I can hold it for X amount of years. And then when I go to sell it, I have two options, right? I could pay all the taxes and start with, I don't know, 60% of that amount and then do it again. Or I could do a 1031 exchange and take that money dollar for dollar and roll it over to a new investment, which helps the economy, right? It helps the new seller, helps the economy, the local, the federal, the state, everything. And then again and again and again. And that's a vehicle that's totally legal, and it's designed to boost our economy. It's designed to increase transactions. And I think that it's a misguided and mistaken notion to think that tax code and tax reform that's helped the investor and that's helped the citizen and that's helped the country is something that's bad or that's shameful to engage in.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that I'm passionate about as well. And because of my experience teaching in Taiwan before I got into tech full time, was that I had to learn how to explain difficult things using very easy words and very basic concepts that everybody knows. And one of the things that I think is important to understand is one, like, the people who think that real estate is basically an oligarchy, or just like a thing where it's just like, okay, well, it's an insider group and you ain't in it, as Carlin said. I think one of the biggest problems for the public
By the way,
is
that was
that
a great soliloquy for Carlin. I know exactly
right.
what you're referring to. Yeah.
Right. The thing that crosses my mind about that, though, is that it's it is a little bit difficult to get into real estate as far
It
as like the
isn't. It
mindset.
isn't. It isn't.
Well,
It isn't.
well, if you're bad at math, if you don't know anybody, anything like that, and but that's a lot of what the show is. And what I want to do is I want to show how easy this stuff really is to understand. And the one liner that I like to use is understanding that the government itself, its job is to take care of the people and the land,
Yeah,
and landlords are doing the government's job actively. So if
that's
you
interesting.
are taxing them, then that's insane. I'm taxing you on work you're doing for me, like that, to take care of these buildings. It makes no sense to be taxing it. As a matter of fact, the reason why they tax most things is so that, the economy of your product or whatever it is doesn't get out of hand. And, the founding fathers said taxation is a method to destroy, just like
Hey, can I tell you something? I'm a loving guy. I'm a positive guy. I'm almost always smiling. I got a bone to pick. Okay. Do you know that just in the last few days, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out and said that in the United States, they're going to be adding 50 basis points, or 0.5% fee, to every single citizen refinance in the country starting in December. Okay. That means, for everybody watching this, that if I have a $500,000 house, right, they're going to add a fee of $2,500 to you, the consumer, okay, in order to offset all of their losses, the government, because of what's gone on during this pandemic. Okay. So again, I'm a little frustrated about this because I don't believe in taxing the small guy in order to fill the pockets of the big guy. I think that's the opposite of the founding principles of this country. And I just think it's important for people to be aware of that. I just wanted to put that out there. To your point previously about this misconception of the real estate oligarchy, I couldn't be further from the truth. First of all, the access today to other people's money, or OPM, is insane. Okay, I got my start by essentially going door to door and knocking on people's homes. I literally, it's funny, I found this cool map in my parents' house the same day I found that Viper model. And I had gone to the city of Southfield, which is where I lived, and I spent maybe $20. I printed out this huge map. Okay, it was half mile by half mile, basically aerial photo with all the parcels and the homes and the streets and everything. And then I drove around with a friend in a notebook, and I went through the entire neighborhood and I jotted down, this is, by the way, this is golden. Anybody who wants to take notes on this, this is how I got my start in real estate. jotted down every single home that showed signs of distress. So it could be peeling paint, could be lawn or landscaping that was overgrown, could be the roof, the shingles were starting to buckle or crackle. And I then went with sticky notes, little tiny red and yellow notes. And I went around with my map in my car and I'd go door to door knocking. Hi, my name's Dan Lewkowicz. I live in the neighborhood. I'm interested in buying another home as an investment. And I wanted to know if you'd be interested in selling your home. I then got those properties under contract, okay? And I had no money to do this. So I had other individuals who told me, Dan, if you find me the right properties, I'll put up every single penny. I would call those people. They'd go look at the property with me. We'd write up an offer. I'd get in the deal and I would basically just get out of the deal at the time that we closed. They would take the property, they would renovate it. And I would make, a consulting fee for my time. Zero money, almost zero experience, a lot of grit and gumption and drive. And that's how I built myself up. So this notion that you have to be, the son of a CEO or somebody with a ton of money or a ton of experience, that's bullshit. It's really absolute bullshit. And if you need somebody to tell you with proof positive, you're looking at them. And if you need somebody to help you, I will help anybody who wants help to get started in real estate, because I think that real estate, whether as a broker or an investor or a bird dogger or a consultant, it's a great way to build wealth. And it's you look around, 80% of the millionaires in this country made their wealth through sticks and bricks, period.
Yeah, exactly. It's a slam dunk, and I'm happy to have another person come on and say that. Now, you were mentioning being your parents being in a refugee camp, and you mentioned going to Israel. Is Judaism something that you're willing to talk about, or?
Yeah, totally. I mean, believe it or not, I'm actually an ordained rabbi.
Oh, really? That's really awesome.
Can you see the beard? Can you see?
Oh.
Not really.
That's funny because, I think that Sacha Baron Cohen, he's been doing some good stuff.
I love him.
Right?
I love him.
I do understand that there's all sorts of persecution of Jews that has gone on and all that kind of stuff. The real question I want to ask, because you're a smart guy and you look like the kind of guy who doesn't take it personally, and I got a theory about this, but why is Jew hatred common anywhere?
Yeah, so it sounds like you just built me a little bit of a soapbox, which I would not normally stand up on, but I'm feeling a little funky today. Nice. So number one, I firmly believe in unconditional positive regard and acceptance for oneself or myself and all people. So, in terms of my thoughts on Judaism, I support and believe in Judaism so long as the form of Judaism also supports and believes in the well-being and welfare of all people. That's very important for me to state as a number one in this discussion. Number two, why do I think that there's a hatred of Jews? I mean, it's interesting because if you look back at the history of the Jewish people, traditionally we were often a people that was associated with money. And it's very interesting why that is. So we often weren't allowed in different formal schooling situations. We weren't allowed in many professions. And because we are not allowed to lend money to other Jewish people with something called ribit or ribis in Hebrew, which is interest.
Interest, right.
Yeah, we set up these societies to loan money to ourselves free of interest. And that concept of money lending became very popular. And we started lending money out to non-Jews as well. And from literally the beginning of time, we essentially were the banking mavens and the banking beacons of the world. And I think that due to the success of many Jewish people and the control of many monetary systems through Jewish hands, I think people get angry or they get maybe jealous or upset. And I think that if you hate the system, you might as well hate the people at the top. Okay, so that's just my own 2 cents for whatever it's worth. I think that hatred of any people is misguided because I don't know you very well. You don't know me very well. We have very varied backgrounds, religions, outlooks, nationalities, etc. And that's the beauty of our relationship, right, Dan? Because there's so much that I can learn from you, and there's so much you can learn from me. And the doors that you have at your disposal to open are way different doors than I have. So it's like we got to work together. That's why I think it's so important. Look past the size and shape of my nose or the amount of zeros in my bank account and get to know me as a person. I'm not a Jew. I'm a human, just like, and I think that's really important for people to recognize, because together we can really do a whole hell of a lot more.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And when I was in Taiwan, I did have to teach American history and world history, and it was from American textbooks. And that's really when the Jewish dichotomy, whatever you want to call it, really started to be something that I spent some time thinking about. Because you know, being from Canada, and also I was out in the country as a kid, it just didn't come up. There wasn't you know, it's like, oh, you know, Jews this or Jews that. It's just the topic never even came up. And
Right.
one of the ideas that came up in when I was teaching, and I want to bounce it off of you because it's just a theory after all. I think one of the things that comes up. Oh, right. I want to first say that when it comes to interest, I read, and I may have even saw it in a lecture as well, that it was also true that Christians weren't allowed to lend to each other with interest, and so it was the only situation is like you basically
Oh,
had to go to
that's
Jews to
fascinating.
borrow money, is what I heard.
I believe the same thing is true with Muslims as well, according to Sharia. I'm
Mm.
not 100% certain, but I believe that's the case. So what you're saying would actually, it's almost like if there is a God, that God designed this free enterprise business system and said, hey guys, Jewish people, you can't lend to each other with interest. Christian people, you can't lend to each other with interest. Muslim people, you can't lend to each other with interest. Okay, boom, free market, go lend to each other.
Right, right, right. So the other thing, though, as far as a theory I have, as far as
Yeah.
Jew hatred, as I'm going to call it, it's I think it has to do with if you ask whatever a regular American is, you know, like tell me about yourself. If I say I'm Canadian or if I'm from Taiwan or whatever, the first thing out of their mouth would be I'm American. Whereas with some Jewish people, the first thing out of their mouth would be, I'm Jewish, which automatically it kind of takes away from the nationality and the
So I
patriotism
would
part of
agree
it.
with you. I think that the separatism, if you will, if that's a word, is problematic. And I do agree that most Jewish people will say, and even growing up before I became very religious. I got rabbinical ordination, and then I returned to my roots of being more of like a open-minded secular Jew. But when I was growing up as a secular Jew, I would have led with that. Yes, I'm Jewish. Today, not so much because of the lessons that I've learned throughout my years and as I've grown wiser. But I would definitely agree that many people have that mentality of, yeah, I'm Jewish. And you bring up a good point. Well, wait a minute. What about the fact, are you American? Are you a businessman? Are you a Michigander? Are you a Detroit native? And I think that the, I'm hesitant to say this, Dan, but I'm going to be honest. There is a little level of elitism amongst many Jewish people. And I think that does rub people the wrong way. And again, that's why I led with the same thing I'm going to end with, which is I believe firmly in unconditional positive regard and acceptance for oneself and all people. Therefore, I'm going to lead with the fact that I'm a human, right? I'm a person, just like you are. We are on the same level. We are way more alike than we are different. I don't care who you're voting for. I don't care what your thoughts are on the 1031 exchange. I don't care where you live. The moment that we start dividing ourselves by saying what religion we are, what political party we are, how much money we have, what gender we are, what sexual orientation, we take away from the greatest gift that we have that we share, which is that we're human.
Yeah, that's really, really something. This isn't an ad for Microsoft or LinkedIn or anything like that. And I've been putting out one video per day since February 10th of this year, and I'm going to do it for an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And I started because I was basically a recluse, and I was doing the funnelfixing.com and coming out of web.com to start funnel fixing. I was only working for seven-figure companies that were like, and I'm just talking about their online activities, right?
Yeah.
So one of the holes in my knowledge, and like I never want to seem like a hypocrite, one of the holes I had is I'd never started anybody from zero. So I've actually, if you go to figureout.com, you'll see that I've definitely spent money on it, okay, but I never spent a dollar in ads. So this is
I love
100%
that.
right. It's 100% organic, and I can tell you,
It's 100%
everybody would give
real.
up 6 months in. Everybody would give up 6 months in. Okay.
You think so?
Oh yes, unless it's on LinkedIn.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Okay. In
Yeah, yeah,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
so what's some of the success that you can tell our audience
Okay,
about
let me
LinkedIn?
just lead with this. I'm a broker, okay? I was making 1,000 outbound calls, cold calls a month, okay? That was my metric. If I made 1,000 cold calls, there was a good chance I was going to get a listing that month. Okay, about 3.5 months ago, I totally changed my strategy on LinkedIn. I call it LinkedIn 2.0. I know that I think you even engaged on my post about that. And I have a whole system that I use on LinkedIn that I borrowed from other people, refined and kind of, molded, if you will, into something that works for me. And I think works for other people. It does work for other people because now I do some consulting to help other people to do it. So I totally changed my strategy. I have professionally produced in the studio content from NRM Streamcast. 3 times a week, I drop an episode of my show. I have every Saturday I jam. Okay, a little quick jam. You've seen those, and I give a recap about the weekend and how I'm preparing for the week. And I probably have like one like random video of me with a whiteboard teaching people about like the Amazon effect or the Industrial Revolution 2.0 or 1031 exchanges, what have you, per week. And then pretty much every day, I take a really good article about, cannabis or real estate investment trusts or eviction moratoriums or something, or industrial fulfillment. And I kind of, synopsize it, put a cute, catchy, clever, sometimes sexual title to it. And then I put that out on LinkedIn. So I'm probably posting, I'd say between 10 and 15 times a week. Okay. I'm engaging a lot with people. I make 0 outbound calls now. Okay. I get probably 150 messages a day on LinkedIn. And pretty much all of my business traffic is from LinkedIn. Pretty much all of it. It's to the extent that if I have a listing and I put a flyer on LinkedIn, the real estate investment trusts and the fund managers and the huge hedge funds, those people are emailing me because they know who I am. It's
Right.
insane. It's
Yeah, it
insane.
really
So,
is.
and guess what? You know how much I pay for LinkedIn? $0. I don't even use and not because it's not worth it. LinkedIn. I'm not saying that. I don't know. But at this point, I'm so inundated by business and by activity and by engagement with what I'm doing now. I've hired people just to help assist me in my content creation for LinkedIn. It's insane. So like to anybody out there, to your point, like I would have never had the reach that I have today if it weren't for LinkedIn. I mean, the fact what we're doing here is all on LinkedIn. 2 days ago, I got, arguably one of the biggest, brightest, and best brokers. That's a nice alliteration, right?
Mhm.
In all of America reached out to me, and he was on both of my shows, right? We've never met in person. Okay. We're only through LinkedIn. I've got groups that I'm part of. I get almost probably 98% of my news is from LinkedIn. Why? Because if I want to learn about quick service restaurant, I'm going to read an article by Danny Klein from QSR Magazine. Why? Because he'll respond to my comment. And then Barry Wolf will jump in and say, oh, well, this is my experience. And then Greg Parsons will be like, Barry, that's bullshit. Right. And then, no, that's more Gabe Jonas. Greg
Right.
Parsons will be like, I will tell you exactly the metrics at Brookfield. You know what I mean? And it's like, this is real. Like, this is cool. I'm interacting with like legit all-stars who know what they're doing. And like, honestly, like to me, life is fun this way. It's almost like a cool video game with celebrity, professional, incredible, awesome business people. I love it, man.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And people keep on saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right? So
Yes.
that really
Yes.
it's so true.
Yeah. So there's another cool tip that I have for LinkedIn, and that is just to be 100% authentic in yourself. A couple people asked me to jam a little bit on guitar, and I found that like I've recorded things where I'm just like playing a little riff and then I break a string, and my
Mhm.
first inclination is like, oh shoot, like let me edit that out, and then I'm
Yeah,
like, no, that's life. You break strings all the time, right?
right.
So I found that there's so many cool media that you can use on LinkedIn to connect with people. And I started really thinking about it, and I got this cool Boss looper pedal, which is
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like what Ed Sheeran uses to sound like a real G on guitar. And he is a G. No disrespect to Ed. And I started playing with it, and I'm like, shoot, I laid down my cool riffs. Okay, boom, my cool chord progressions, and then I click the pedal, and it plays back what I've already kind of like perfected and I know works because the E minor C D G is like a chord progression from hundreds of songs that
Yeah.
we all know, so
Mhm.
it's tried and true. And then I got like a major pentatonic scale, so I'll go solo over that. And then maybe I'll tap a little bit on the guitar, and because Ed Sheeran does that and he's cool. And at the end of the day, like I've built this multi-level, layered, tiered thing. And it sounds kind of good because I'm using fundamentals that have worked for me in the past. And I think that that's a tremendous analogy to business, right? I've started many businesses. Some of them have failed, some of them have succeeded. but the ones that have succeeded all have common threads. Yeah, that's my E minor C D G, right? And I didn't create that chord progression, and I didn't create that business model. I took that from other mentors of mine who helped me to cultivate it. I had my guitar lessons, some of them paid and some of them free, from people who were ultra successful. And then once I got that down, I said, oh, this is sweet. But I just learned a new scale, right? Like I just learned about LinkedIn, or I just learned about SEO, or I just learned about funnel metrics. Let me solo that over what I've already got. And then it's like, oh, wow. Now what I had that worked for my previous song, my previous business is even better. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I have this intuition. There's this other rhythm. Let me just tap a little bit and get this going. And then, oh, let me play it for Dan. And Dan's like, oh, Dan, man, let me get in there. I'll solo with you. And I'm like, oh. And now we've got, instead of a solo venture, now we got a joint venture. I think there's so many parallels between things like music and business. And in my opinion, music is a universal language. I'm gonna get a little religious on you. The natural order is 7, right? 7 is represented by nature. If you look in the Talmud, it talks about Shiva Yipol Tzadik V'Kam. It says 7 times a righteous person will fall down and get back up. So you think about that, you're like, wait a minute, a righteous person or a successful person, they only fall 7 times? There's no way. Well, Shiva, which is the number 7, is very similar to the word Teva, which is nature. So it's the natural way of a righteous person or a successful person to fall down and then get back up, right? So what's interesting is that if you look at an octave, what is an octave? From the word 8, right? So there's
the Chinese 8. Sorry.
There you go.
This is 6 in Cowabunga over here, but yeah, that's 6.
There you go.
Yeah. So you can count to 10 on one hand.
8 represents transcendence. Okay, it represents the going above the natural order, and musical scales are often built on octaves. And if you look at music and music theory, it oftentimes transcends the natural order. I find that for me, my mind expansion, my drug of choice is acoustic guitar, because I sit there and I unplug. And I've got a little brother who I love to death. He's literally my best friend. I'm so thankful to have him in my life, and he is a musician too. And we literally can talk to each other with music. It's insane. And I find that too. The moment I start jamming, somebody comes out of the woodwork. Some guy with a suit and tie says, Dan, you just made me get my Taylor guitar off the shelf for the first time in 15 years. And there's nothing that makes me happier, than hearing that. So I believe that music is a universal language. It transcends everything. It's above the natural order. And to be able to connect with business people through music and business, it's just like, dude, I couldn't have designed my life to be more fun. I really couldn't. I have so much gratitude. I'm so thankful.
That's really awesome. And you're a really sharp guy. One of the things that I included in my book, Figure It Out, the Attention to Detail Handbook, is I start off by, I'm talking about success, and specifically through the context of the value of attention to detail, because it's always been my get out of jail free card. Whenever I'm in trouble, it's start paying attention to what's around me. What is there that can fix this problem? Kind of like when God closes a door, he opens a window, that kind of thing. You have to keep your eyes peeled for that. And one of the first things that I wrote in here, and I wrote it last year, and because of that, it was before lockdown. So I actually got back in practice during lockdown for the first time in 20 years, really. And the first thing that I was talking about is that the nature of skills is that if you find somebody who's really good at anything at all, even just one thing, then they're probably actually going to be good at a lot of things, because they learn to take that grind.
Just transpose it.
Yeah, just apply it to everything else. So the way that I started it off was saying that, they say that if you study music, you'll be better in math, and you'll be better at this, and you'll be better in that. And my whole point was not really. Okay. And the reason is because I've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of different careers, all that kind of stuff. And that was one of the first things that I got really good at. But one of the reasons is because I didn't want to be known as a guitar guy. But I think you really got, I really got on your radar from that Eddie Van Halen bit that I was doing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so the thing that's funny, right? And so the thing that's funny is it I've now that I've got all these different videos out, it's like if you include all my other interviews and all that, it's like 300 videos I've got on Figure It Out and the topic that basically goes around this book here. And none of it's about guitar. Almost none of it is about maybe 6-10% is about the technology and stuff
Yeah.
that goes along with funnel fixing. But yeah, it's entirely possible I might just start doing guitar now just because of the reach, and like, why not? As long as
Totally.
at the end
Yeah.
of every video I say, okay, attention to detail, look at the description, buy the stuff and all that, and
And
if
isn't
you
isn't music about attention to detail? I mean,
oh, it
and
really is.
I'll respectfully disagree because I know that I started playing guitar when I was 7,
Hmm.
and I just feel that the ability to parallel process, read music, do something with this hand, do something with that hand, do some strumming, get in there, sing, all that, that I think cultivates a usage of the mind that isn't cultivated without music, number one. And number two, when I'm doing a task, I'm often thinking about at the same time, well, what can I transpose over that task in the background, right? So when my admin is building out, my TV show and designing this part and that part, well, at the same time, maybe she can create an Excel spreadsheet of everybody who's been on my show so that we can have a new list when we want to alert people about, new episodes. So it's the same thing as music. Like I'm playing a song and I'm like, wait a minute, oh, cool, G major pentatonic, let's put it over on top of it. So I do think that it cultivated my mind from a very young age to see things in like almost a four-dimensional context.
Okay, yeah. Well, now that you say the four-dimensional context, I think we're a little bit closer to somewhere where we'll agree. Because one thing I found, like if you really want to do the really tough stuff, the toughest stuff on guitar has got to be classical. It's got to be
So I
classical.
learned on a Spanish classical guitar.
Okay, good. So what did you get to a particular grade, or do you recall?
I don't know that. So growing up here, I mean, my parents bought me a Spanish classical guitar, a flamenco guitar, and I just took lessons. So that actually, oh my God, my guitar was a Jose Montalvo, and it looks
Hmm.
exactly like yours.
This is a Taiwanese.
Oh,
This is a Taiwanese Yamaha from 1978.
okay, do it up, man. I wish I had mine here.
So, well, the typical ones for that I'm talking about, like counterpoint, would be like, but I hate that song. The one I've been
Keep
working on
going,
is,
keep going.
well, now I'll do a better one.
Oh man, you are definitely on top, Dan. Listen, that was beautiful, first of all. Second of all, I got one question for you. I already know the answer, but I want other people to know the answer. Where the heck are you going when I can see you, you just look up and you're in some other dimension.
In my fingers. It's a spatial thing. So it's like basically, and that was a question that I asked myself for a very long time because I've always been able to take these enormous breaks, like months and months, sometimes years, without playing one of my songs, and still be able to get pretty close. And like right there, I heard at least 7 mistakes in that song, that as I just did it there. But the main thing that I found is that it just doesn't seem right unless the tactile part comes out. So like I should actually have the feeling of a string on this finger for that note, or a string right here on this finger.
Yeah.
So like if I don't have that feeling, just something just doesn't feel right. And the other thing too is when I look up in the sky, I'm also going like, stop paying attention to what I'm looking at, stop paying attention to what I'm thinking of,
Right.
unless I'm looking
Exactly.
at the guitar. So every time I'm starting to say, it's like, am I going to mess up this next part? If you think about that, then you're going to mess it up, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I get it, man. And I know, like, for me, I often play with my eyes closed and I literally feel like I'm going to a different universe.
hmm,
Like it's like the one thing, or one of the one things, I guess maybe I would say, that when I do it, I'm just like, I almost feel like I'm floating and I'm in some different dimension.
hmm,
And at that point, my mind just feels like it goes from being like this to being like part of a larger collective consciousness. I
hmm.
know that sounds crazy, but I literally, like, that's why, like, when you're playing this, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in bliss watching you and listening to you. And at the same time, I want to be doing it because, like, I want to be in that space too. So thanks for sharing that, man. That was just incredible.